You still trying to win that money? You're in the right place. Stay tuned in. This week, we going over the quarterbacks in the NFC. And understand this, quarterbacks don't just decide games, they decide markets. Right now, before free agency, before the draft, before anything becomes official, quarterbacks are being evaluated for pricing, not on performance, on projection. If you're trying to win that $100 that we're giving away this offseason, you're going to need that word, projection. And you need to understand what it truly means. We project health, we project development, coaching impact, stability, leaps, and declines. So when a projection gets inflated, future numbers will reflect it. When projection gets disciplined, that's when edges appear. And that's before the pricing even opens. In this league, you don't bet quarterbacks, you bet projection errors. Okay, so before we dive into this NFC conference, let's talk about why this really matters. Because projection at quarterback is the most expensive mistake you can make. Because when the betting market open up, projection will shape win totals, it'll influence division odds, and it'll drive the MVP futures. In fantasy, projection builds draft boards. Projection builds ADP. It builds expectations, right? And if the projection input is wrong, that means everything that was built from that projection expectation will be wrong as well. And that's how people get trapped. They draft belief. They bet momentum. They price hope. But hope isn't real, right? So before we start naming names, before we start breaking down situations, understand this. Quarterback instability creates volatility. Volatility creates pricing gaps. And pricing gaps are either risk or opportunity. All right? And that's what we're walking through tonight. And we'll try to identify where projection pressure is building before the numbers even open. So let's make this real. Every offseason, teams convince themselves that their quarterback situation is stable. And those same fans convince themselves that the leap is coming. And when the sports books eventually open up the numbers, their confidence get priced in immediately before anybody proves anything. And that's where projection gets dangerous. Because when the market assumes improvement and improvement don't come, then that downfall isn't gradual. It's violent. When projection meets reality, spreads move, win totals fall, fantasy hype disappears. And most people don't see it coming because they were comfortable with the projection. But let's make it uncomfortable for a second. Every offseason, someone loses their job because the quarterback was projected incorrectly. It could be the head coach, coordinator, GM, no one's safe. And every offseason, someone gets paid because projection gets inflated. And bettors convince themselves that they're being objective when they're really just buying into the belief system that was created for these type of moments. But here's the truth. Quarterbacks don't collapse, projection does. And when projection snap back into reality, it don't drift, it crashes, right? And that's the pattern that we see year in and year out. The league moves on projection. The money is made on correction. All right, so let's try to close this out properly. Tonight wasn't about quarterbacks. It was about projection. Projection is belief priced before proof. And when belief outruns reality, the adjustment is sharp, right? We got that. That's where markets will move. That's where fantasy boards will shift. That's where money will change hands. This offseason isn't about reacting. It's about identifying where projection is inflated and positioning before correction. If you understand projection, you don't chase headlines. You anticipate the snapback. And that's the edge. Now, the giveaway. $100. Step 1, subscribe to this channel. Step 2, join the email list at footballersmoney.com. Step 3, Use the word projection in the comments and tell me how it affects your betting or fantasy decisions. 3 steps, 1 word, 1 explanation. Each week you participate, you increase your odds. All right. We'll track qualifying entries all month. Winners selected live on the show. Full transparency. We're going to be doing the wheel draw. It's going to be random, but if you are here every week, you are positioned to win. So stay tuned in and remember, the league moves on projection, but the money is made on discipline. All right. I'm your host. They call me Boss. This is Football is Money, and we out.